Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Addicts Advocate. I'm your host, Dusty Dean, and it is my pleasure to introduce a friend of mine. How
Hello,
are you,
man.
sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm all right.
Good. Yeah, good to see you. I know that you've been having some rough time, a car accident and all, but it's good to see your face, and thankfully nothing worse happened. But you've got a heck of a story, and it's something definitely that I think will resonate with some people in this country. The nice thing is, power of the internet. I'm out here on the West Coast, and you're
Yep.
out there on the East Coast. And we met through the power of Instagram. So with that, I'm going to kind of go and let you just start this off. Tell us how you got to your state of
Oh,
sobriety.
man. It's been a long journey, man. It's been over 20 years of roller coaster rides up and down. And, the roller coaster still goes up and down and takes me for some loop-de-loops, you know? But the difference is that today I choose not to medicate, not to self-medicate. Today I choose not to pick up, no matter what the circumstances are. Because back when I was in my full-blown addiction, I didn't have good coping skills. I didn't know how to manage issues. So I would run, I would hold things inside. I wouldn't talk about the pressures I was going through, because growing up, I grew up in a very traditional household where I was taught, men don't cry, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, you don't talk about stuff. You can't be weak. So in the moments where in my life I was weak and I was under a lot of grief, I was under, that grief became anger, and that anger manifested with me projecting what I was feeling onto other people, especially my then wife. I had been in the military, and, I had gone through a few things, the loss of my father and a couple other things that really hit hard because there were those vicissitudes of life, those things that we don't expect. And I didn't take them well. But what got me clean and sober this time around, and for good, was, I want to say, my final rock bottom, because I've had many different bottoms, and each bottom was never the same. This one was, I think, the worst of all, where I found myself sitting in a federal detention center here in Miami, facing 10 years. I was facing 10 years for something that I had done. And I just, I followed Michael Jackson's suggestion, and I, started with the man in the mirror. I took a deep, long look in the mirror while I was sitting at the segregation unit while I was there on my third day. And I had this internal conversation, which I want to say was God or a messenger of God. Because as I looked at myself in the mirror, something said, "Like where you're at, Carlos? Huh? You like this? Look where you're at, man. You graduated." Because I've done time before, state time, nothing more than a year. And I've gone to jail a couple of times, 30 days, 90 days. But I always laughed that in the face because I knew at the end of 90 days, I'd be done and I'd be out, And I've gone through treatment, and I've gone through other forms, but there was no getting out. I had a 25,000, I had no money. I was homeless on the street, and there was no getting out of this. So the conversation was something like, like where you're at, Carlos? How you like this? You're 45 years old, man. Look at yourself. Is this what you want for the rest of your life? This isn't you, man. Are you done? Are you done, Carlos? And I couldn't do anything but, realize that. And I started crying right there, trying to hold my tears back because, I was with somebody else, and you're in prison and you don't cry, You don't shed those tears while you're there. At least not at that moment. At least that was my perception of it. Little did I know that my cellmate later on, he would confide in me, and, he had to cry too when we were finally in our pod and in our cell over something with his family that he didn't expect. He was happy about it, but it hurt him too. But I had that same conversation about 2 weeks later. We were moved to a quarantine unit because this was in the middle of COVID. This is January 20th. So I had that same conversation one night while laying in bed. What are you going to do now, Carlos? Are you ready? Are you ready to stop this way in life? Because you got to accept where you are. You got to accept what's coming. And, that's all part of recovery. Being honest, open-minded, and willing. Being honest about what's going on in your life. Being honest with what you're facing. Being open-minded in accepting your current circumstance, which for me was sitting in federal detention center until I got to speak to my lawyer and got to go through the process. And I kept hearing, as a matter of fact, that same phrase, trust the process. Trust the process. And it came to a point where, I started getting comfortable. No, I don't want to say comfortable. I accepted my circumstances. I'm here, man. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm powerless over this. I'm powerless over where I am. I'm powerless over my circumstances. My life and the rest of my life is in the hands of God, in the hands of my judge, and in the hands of the attorneys, both the prosecution and the defense. So that's when I started doing a big, long look at myself. And I started looking internally.
Wow, man. You touched on a lot of good points. We talk about this choice, right, that we have to make every day. And we never realized that we had to make a choice when we were in the middle of our using, right? We just kind of did what we did. And there is definitely something to be said about, being done. I know that when I hit my bottom, it was like, okay, I'm done. And I was willing to let, other people, take a hold of me. And again, having to trust a process that was different than the one that I was doing to get through life, because I know that my process just wasn't working. But it is scary, right? The feelings, right? Having to process right
It's very
things
scary.
in your life that you're afraid to do so, right? And yeah, I appreciate that. What were you addicted to, if you don't mind me asking? What were you addicted to?
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
Okay.
Cocaine and crack cocaine.
Um, so your rehabilitation, what did that look like? What was the process? Did you go into an intensive detox, center?
So
Okay.
I was in the federal detention center the whole time. I ended up, so as time went on, life is funny. The universe is always funny, and God is always funny sometimes. And not funny, haha, just funny, curious. Because throughout my life, I read a lot. I'm a reader. Whatever it is that I have had a deep interest in, somehow, some way, the book has always found its way to me. So while sitting in Federal Detention Center, Miami, when you're finally in your pod and, and you're on your floor, they have a book cart that comes through, every week or every 2 weeks. And I started finding books. A lot of them were, sorry, people here in Miami, they don't drive too well. I'm sorry about that. I started finding books on psychology and theology. And it was also through a friend of mine, or a person who I now call a friend, that I made while I was in the Federal Detention Center in Miami, that I found my way to God. My religion of choice is Islam. I've been a Muslim since 2000, and I was never really practicing one after 2006 because life gets in the way, work, family life. So you stop doing the things that keep you clean and sober, you know? I used to go to meetings. I used to pray 5 times a day. I used to congregate with other Muslims, and we would talk about God, and we would talk about the philosophy of Islam and other things. And I have a lot of Christian friends. I have a lot of Jewish friends. I was never one to alienate you just because you didn't believe in Islam. It's the same God of all 3 Abrahamic faiths. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. We believe in the same God of Abraham. So I started practicing Islam again. He started bringing me back into the fold. This kid was very religious, even, very spiritual, regardless of the circumstances he was. So that process, and like I said, the books, I ended up finding this book series through what's called Prison Fellowship, which is a Christian-based 12-step program, just like in AA, just like in NA. And I started working the steps. It came with a workbook. It was brand new, still in the packaging. Other books, Jewish theology, Christian theology, philosophy. I found books from Carl Jung, and I started doing work with self and the shadow aspects of myself. Started learning about that. Mind you, I already have certain college credits to my name in psychology, abnormal psychology, deviant psychology. But in my addiction, I knew a lot, but I didn't apply any of it. And this time I had to take what I was learning and apply it. I had to apply that to my life this time, And through the steps, I realized that I was powerless against my addiction. That my life had become fully managed. Because I was being told when to shower, when to eat, when to go to sleep, when to wake up. So I was sitting in Federal Detention Center in Miami. Through that friend, I came to believe in a power greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. And through the practice of coming back into the religion that I practice, into the spiritual aspect of it, I turned my will and my life over to the care of God, as I understand Him. And I knew that if I kept that process, that whatever was going to happen with me would happen not because other humans dictated so, but because God did. because God did for me what I wasn't willing to do for myself. I didn't like the way he did it, putting me in federal detention center in Miami and end up picking up a charge. But it was the best lesson I could have received. And again, God did for me what I wasn't willing to do for myself. I wasn't willing to get clean. Even when I had a choice of not having God in prison, because I had a police officer approach me, city of Miami. He gave me his card at a Publix. He told me, listen, if you want help, if you want to get off the streets, call me. I can get you in a hotel for 14 days. You can quarantine, and then I'll take you to a shelter. If you have drug problems, it can help you. The day before I was supposed to meet him, I slept and I overslept and I didn't meet him. I never called him back. So that would have been the easier, softer way and not have to have gotten a federal charge. But since I didn't go the softer way that was presented to me, the God of my understanding put me in a harder position to where I can open my eyes, open my mind, and open my heart to trust the process and finally decide to get clean and sober. And I didn't do 10 years. I didn't do 5. I didn't do 2. His grace, his mercy, his compassion extended me to only being sentenced to 18 months, of which I had already done 13 and a half. And I was granted those 13 and a half months. So in total, I did 15 months and was put on 3 years probation, of which I have 1 more year to go. And I still go to meetings. I've been going to meetings since I got out. April 29th of 20, I was living in a recovery house for 1.25 years, saved my money, got my own place. I ended up buying a car while I was still living at that recovery house. Mind you, I have had some hiccups. You know, I've lost jobs, haven't used over it. I got hit by a car while on a bike. I didn't use over that. The fellowship taught me that. The 12 steps taught me that I didn't have to use anymore. And mind you, I'm going to share something with you right now. You know it, but I'm going to share it with the rest of your viewers. I'm going through a difficult life change right now. You know, I lost my job in January. Haven't found one yet. I've been going through a couple of workforce initiative programs that teach you warehousing skills and things like that in order to gain gainful employment. Still working on that. And I just lost my car due to an accident. Broke my hand.
What do you find is, are your coping skills if you,
But I still don't use.
If you find that everything else isn't working for you on a day, let's say you have a bad hour or something. What's your coping skill? What do you do?
I talk to people. I go to my meetings every day, man. Well, now that I don't have a car, I keep in contact with people over the phone. You know, people from my fellowship, people from my home group. You know, they text me every day. Carlos, are you okay? Carlos, where you at? Do you want me to pick you up for a meeting? I have that network. People who care, people who check up on me. And I do the effort to pick up that phone. I don't ignore them. I don't sit in my pity pot. I do have a therapist, because it's part of my profession. I have to have someone to talk to. I have a certified recovery peer specialist, and I have a caseworker that I talk to weekly. So that helps as well. You know, there's nothing wrong with going to therapy. I don't hang out with old people who are doing old things. I don't visit old places. I don't have anybody who lives in those neighborhoods. So I have no reason to be in those neighborhoods. I don't involve myself with people who are actively using or in active addiction. On the contrary, I surround myself with people who are in active recovery, who have anywhere from
the aspect of community is so important in maintaining
or even more.
sobriety. I can't tell you that I've got an abundance of friends now that I never thought I would have. I actually feel like my life is richer with the community that I have now than it's ever been, and I attribute that to my sobriety. But I know that if I was by myself doing this alone, it would be that much more difficult. With the fact that you were going through basically your own detox in the middle of federal prison, that they say, right, with the fact that drugs do such a number to our brain chemistry, right? They do a number to our dopamine, right? And when we stop taking, these drugs, our dopamine levels are so low that we have we fall into a depression, we fall into anxiety. But you're kind of in a unique situation in that you were dealing with this withdrawal in a pretty crappy place anyway, right? So
yeah,
I mean, you can't really be happy and be in prison at the same time, right? So it's kind of an interesting kind of detox story for you, because some people obviously just willfully quit and then end up going to some sort of a detox center where they have to figure it out. And they usually have therapists on site. They're usually giving medication and things like that, but you didn't have any of that. It was basically it was the hard knocks route. And so I can.
Yeah, it was difficult. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be honest with you. That part of sitting in the federal detention center while coming down from the withdrawals of the cocaine, because honestly, cocaine is more psychological. There's no physical withdrawals from it, except for like the appetite. It's a lot more psychological withdrawal. Like you said, the depression, the anxiety, or the nervousness. The brain coming down from that extreme high dopamine. It was difficult, but it lasted about maybe 7 days. Started drinking water, started eating, because you gotta eat. So, and I mean, mind you, the food wasn't that great, but it was better than nothing. So little by little, my body got rid of that. And after about, I want to say a week and a half, I started feeling a little bit better physically. Because when I would be out there, I'd be out there for days. I wouldn't sleep for like 4 days straight. I was on it, And when I did sleep, after 4 days, I'd knock out for like 16 hours straight, somewhere in the street, secluded from other people's views, but, or other people's eyes, place where they couldn't see me, but I'd knock out for 16 hours straight. Now I was finally getting, my body back, my mind back, sleeping the regular 8 hours, walking around the pod, doing some exercise, drinking more water, and watching TV.
So what's your routine look like now?
Relaxing.
What does your day
Praying,
consist of?
Meditating.
Outside of trying to find a job right now.
Well, right now that's totally changed because I no longer have my vehicle. My vehicle is a total loss, unfortunately. So right now I'm trying to come up with a new routine, to be honest with you. It's not the same anymore because I don't have a way around. But it's going to start consisting Monday, because Mondays and Thursdays I report to probation and I have to take a UA. I have to be there anywhere between 8 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I prefer to be there at 8 o'clock at night. So I at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I usually wake up like around 6:30. I get ready. I make sure that I take a shower the night before. I have a gym membership to Planet Fitness. So I'm very aware of what time they close on certain days. So I make sure I get there like an hour before, take a shower, get dressed and go. I find my place to sleep. I sleep, I wake up, like I said, 6:30, 6:45, get ready. I have clean clothes in a backpack. I don't have to worry about that. And I make it to probation. From there, I make it to a chiropractic therapy clinic by, I want to say, 10 in the morning, because I'm dealing with some pain issues from a previous accident. So I'm going through that. From there, after that ends at like about 11, I go to the beach twice a week, depending on what day of the week. I don't know. I try and do nothing for those 2 days except contemplate. It's not that I'm procrastinating. It's not that I'm being lazy. Sometimes throughout the week, I need 2 days to myself to think, to strategize. So I do that. Other days of the week, I'm at my meeting by 1 o'clock. If there's no meeting at 1 o'clock, I'll wait around. I'll find one that's close by. If not, I just wait until 5, which is my regular meeting at Little River Clubhouse here in Miami. I'll stick around for the 7 o'clock meeting. That ends at 8 o'clock. By 8, I'm on a Lyft or an Uber out to where I generally stay, and I do it all over again.
Yeah.
And obviously I stay on my phone looking for work, sending out resumes, sending out applications, hoping for answers. So right now, I don't think there's much I can do. I have an appointment on Monday with the orthopedics.
Yeah, I mean, there's
They're
so
talking
many
about
ways now.
surgery on my hands. So to be honest with you, looking for work right now may
Yeah,
not
it'd be nice if you were able to
may
pick
not
up
be
something
on the
like
bucket
a
list.
something that was phone based, right? You could
No, there's not
answer.
really
You
much
could
I
have
can-
calls routed to
There's
you.
not really
You
much
could
I will be able to do.
customer service, of some
Come
sort.
Monday.
That might be an option. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely
telemarketing, things like that.
definitely have a story, my man. It's pretty incredible. But it just
We'll
shows
see.
the resilience of the human
We'll see
spirit.
what the goddamn
So I
understanding
commend
has for
you
me.
for your battle and your positive attitude towards all of this, because some have never touched the depths that you have touched and could never understand what that would feel like, nor even want to feel it ever. But you are living, breathing proof that there's nothing impossible, right, with God.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Dusty. If I was still in my same mind, see, everything that had to change was my mindset. I had to change my thinking. I had to change the way I thought about what I was feeling about, and I had to become aware of my feelings. What I mean by this, for some of your listeners that may not understand what I'm trying to refer to, is you got to think about what you're thinking about, because your thinking and your feelings we'll do this dance. And if you will allow yourself, or if I allow myself to fester in negative thinking and negative feeling, resentments are going to start coming out. If I allow those, I'm going to get pissed off. Let's just say it. It's going to make me angry. It's going to make me feel a certain way about my situation. I'm going to start blaming others, God. I'm going to start blaming other things and take my focus away from what I need to do, which is go to appointments, go to meetings, pray, meditate, and it's going to come to a point where I'm going to say, you know what, F it. Why should I stay clean and sober when all this is happening to me anyway? You know, blah, 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 blah. You know, the pity pot. Pour me, pour me, pour me. Pour me another drink. Pour me another rock in my step. No. So, Dusty, I have to be very aware. It's not just aware of my thinking and my feeling and how they're interacting and how I'm interacting with my external environment. By the way, I learned this through Carl Jung's process of depth psychology. Your thinking and your feeling will determine how you interact with your external environment. It's staying in touch with the fellowship. It's going to meetings. It's when you don't want to pray. When you don't want to go to a meeting, go to a meeting. When you don't want to talk to somebody, you talk to somebody. I have to force myself to do that, because if not, little by little, I'll start slipping back into my old character defects.
Just for
lying,
just for right now, let's go back to the very beginning. What do you think? How did the addiction catalyze?
That's what takes me out.
How did it start? Was it purely just a party scene every once in a while? Became to a daily habit? Was it something you were trying to? No, you're fine. Go ahead. Well, no, I want to understand, how it got out of control. What did
Definitely.
What did it?
I'm sorry.
How did it manifest itself? Was it problems in life?
Finish your sentence. I'm sorry, I interrupted. I will definitely say that growing up, television had some influence. I used to watch a lot of old TV. A lot of people may not recognize some of the names of of TV shows that I'll mention, but I used to watch, a lot of Dragnet. I used to watch McHale's Navy. I used to watch Hogan's Heroes, and there was a lot of smoking in these shows, in these old movies. There was drinking. I would watch a lot of movies where alcohol was glorified and it was okay to drink. And being as a little kid, I would go up to my dad whenever he would sit at the kitchen table and he would drink his scotch and water or scotch and soda. And I'd ask him, Dad, what are you drinking? What is that? Can I try it? And at first, when he finally gave in and said, okay, here, fine, take a sip. Because, here, he's going to think it's totally disgusting. And I did. But my first and true addiction was video games. That was my first and true addiction because I got bullied a lot when I was in elementary school. I used to go to private school, so I would get bullied a lot. And my escape was coming home and playing video games for like 8 hours straight. I did my homework. Didn't matter what time it was. Then I would end 1, 2 in the morning. I would not stop because playing the hero on certain video games and beating the enemy or wherever it was made me feel good about myself. Later on, it was cigarettes to fit in with people in middle school or high school that, because I always wanted to fit in. So, the cigarettes started when I was about 14 or 15. Then at 16 with the weed. Weed, actually, I did want to try. So I was always a nerd. I always read a lot. I grew up with a lot of encyclopedia books. So I always did a lot of reading, a lot of research. I always did really well in school, except when I didn't apply my potential. Because I always had teachers, Carlos, you have so much potential. Why don't you do homework? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do reports? Because you're always acing tests. I was always good at that. I wouldn't go to class for I don't know how long. Come in, because I knew it was test dates. Pass it, ace it, no problem. No homework, no studying. I was that good. I was always a good student. So I researched what was marijuana. What was its scientific effects on the body? This, that, the other. So when I saw there was no dangers, I tried it. When it came to cocaine, I did the research on that. Even though I saw how addicting it was, I said, I'll just try it here and there. I think I'll be fine. So I started, doing a little cooking here, a little bit there. My friend I would put in $10. My friend would put in $10. He'd buy a half a gram, and we'd split it, and we'd take like little tiny, here and there. But I ended up liking it. It opened up my mind. It opened up my synapses. So with cocaine, it helped me focus. I found something new. Wow, what is this? I have attention now. I could Oh my gosh. So I started doing homework. I started doing reports. I started turning in my stuff. I started getting better grades. My GPA went up. So I started doing that secretly. I would call the dealer. He'd bring me a 20 and I'd do it throughout the day. But little by little, a 20 a week started in 220s a week. Because normally we would do it on the weekends, right? You know, to hang out, to party. You know, we'd go buy some weed, buy some alcohol, buy some coke. But then it started on the weekdays. Just once, then twice, then 3 times. And then I found myself doing things in order to find money, like stealing from my dad's wallet, you know, taking the money that my mom would give me on a Friday, spending that like that. First thing I would do is get on the phone, call him, meet at the park. Eventually, I graduated to selling it here in Miami back in the 90s, going to some of the best clubs here in Miami. I met a whole different group of people. I met the buyers. I met the sellers. I met the distributors. So that opened the whole. I would still do it here and there, but I sold more than what I consumed. I wasn't my best customer. You know, and I was making a lot of money, and I had my own business. I opened up because of that. I opened up my own little business, and I would do that during the week. I was no longer in school. I had graduated. You know, this was between the age of 18, 19, 20, 21. So I did this for about 4 years. And the reason I stopped, Dusty, was because one day, you know, I come home from work. And I used to sell on the street. I used to sell belts, leather wallets, leather panty packs. And I would buy them on consignment. At the end of the day, I would come and close out what I sold versus what the inventory I still had. I would pay out, and the rest was mine. And I was saving a lot of money, but I was saving a lot of money from stealing cocaine. So I get home one night, because I would work like 14-hour shifts out there Monday through Friday. And I go to my room. My dad says, "Hey, Carlos, come in the kitchen." Okay. And he's sitting down, and in the middle of the table is this wad of cash. He found my stash. And he says, "Where the F did you get this? Ain't no way. You've made all this." Selling that. He looked me square in the eye, Dusty. He looked me square in the eye. And I lied to my dad. I lied straight to his face. Straight to his face. Mind you, when I was out there selling my belts and I would get phone calls. "Hey, Carlos, I need this. Hey, Carlos, I need that. Hey, Carlos, I need this." So I would sell too. I had a fanny pack full of material. Luckily, I would leave that fanny pack in the trunk of my car when I came in the house. And I showed my dad how much I made that day. I pulled out the wad of cash. I mean, my dad had about 5 in a wad on top of the table. That's how much I had been able to save. Between me buying clothes, buying my girlfriend things, going out, spending money here, spending money there. That's what I was able to save. And I showed him about maybe 800. And he looked at me. He's like, "No way you sold that much. Carlos, you're doing something, and I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to catch you. God forbid I catch you. You're doing something else." So his own instinct, his own military instinct, was leading him the right way. And that's when I stopped. I stopped doing it then because I knew he was going to catch me. My luck had run out with my dad. He wasn't a stupid man, Dusty. My old man was old school. I mean, he was born in 1936 and grew up in rural Cuba. So he was a country boy for like all his life. And he had been brought up hard. He was no fool. You could not fool my dad. He knew something was up. He didn't know what. Maybe he didn't want to say what. Maybe he himself didn't want to come to the realization that I was doing something I shouldn't, unless in his house. His house. So I quit, and I started looking into joining the military. I knew I needed to do something with my life, and I knew I didn't want this for the rest of my life. But it was fun to do and made a lot of money. But I don't recommend it to anybody because luckily I never got caught. I never got raided. I never got pulled over. I know people who have, and I know people who think they're invincible, and you'll think you'll get away with it. You'll get caught today. Because you got to remember, this is back in the 90s. Today, you will get caught. And you will do time. You will do 5 years or less in federal prison for trafficking. I've seen guys in federal prison who were caught on a boat by the U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. Navy hauling 500 kilos.
I think this is probably the perfect place to stop.
For those of you who are
because we've got obviously a lot more to go through.
In that lifestyle right now, while you're ahead.
Carlos, this has been awesome, bud. I'm glad we were able to connect to talk here.
No, right.
This is going to be a couple-part series. We've got so much to go through, and your story, I think, is very riveting. It's almost a movie, but it's great to hear your perspective on this. I think that there's a lot of people out there that could really resonate with what you're talking about. And so hopefully in a week or so, we're going to go ahead and retouch base, and we'll get another episode going, and we'll continue the story. Okay. Again, this is Dusty with the Addicts Advocate. Thank you for listening in, and catch you next time. Bye.
Yeah, of course. Mahalo.